What an afternoon, the 21st of July 2024, in our 30 years of democracy. We still sing Sekuze Basuka, and it brings emotions. 30 years. Oh, I have to use this mic. Yeah? Oh. No, I think I'm okay with this one. This is for the audience. We are in 30 years of democracy, yet we're living contradicting realities that are true at the same time. As the songs that were playing brought emotions, we cannot deny that we've made progress as a country and as a nation, because truth be told, and this is a reality and a truth, just a little over 30 years ago, I wouldn't be standing here as a black woman speaking the things that I'm speaking. Just over 30 years ago, we wouldn't be gathered peacefully here, talking about the government, talking about leaders, without us being attacked. And that is what the 30 years of democracy and freedom are about. We cannot deny that the liberation has been good for us. At the same time, being a black woman, particularly with a disability, I'm standing here 30 years into democracy. When other media people ask leaders to be available, they run. But when a black woman with a disability who's been told that she's empowered through our policies, when she exercises those rights and those policies, it's rejected. You are put down. That is the reality and the truth as well. And that's where we are in the country, where we've got all these contradicting realities and truth, and we don't know how to deal with them. And as we celebrate Mandela Month, and as we come together as leaders, as society, we need to find ways to make sure that those whose blood was shed during the struggle is not in vain. I always say to people, I refuse to believe that a black person cannot lead. And that's one of the reasons I will always speak to those in power, because I believe we've got it in us as a black nation to lead. And we have to speak to one another, because if we don't empower one another, nobody will. Sometimes I think that, I'm a creative, so my mind always goes into imaginations. I wonder if your Mandela, Sobukwe, if they are in the same place with Bofel Wood, Bojan Smart. I wonder, sometimes I feel like Wood and Smart and the apartheid, the colonizers are probably laughing at your Mandela, Sobukwe, and Sisulu, and all of them, because the way we are today, apartheid actually is thriving now more than ever. We are divided now more than ever. How do we begin to come together? Yes, confronting the issues, but becoming again a solution to the issues that we are faced with. We had requested political parties, all of them, like I said, some didn't respond. Some said they're coming. I know they were supposed to be the deputy leader of BOSA. And then the rest told me, some ignored me as usual. I'm used to that. And speaking of that, even as we were opening Parliament, history happened, and nobody, I could be wrong, but I never even had one political party from the helm acknowledge history. A black woman, a South African black woman, won Wimbledon. But because she's got a disability, there was no acknowledgement of that history. Have we become the monster that we fought so hard to bring down? Let's have a conversation. Mr. Mkonda, will start with you because you are from the ACDP. You are not part of the GNU, are you? Yeah, and my question to you, because the GNU is the government of national unity. I ask myself, are you not part because you don't believe in unity, you don't believe in diversity, and you don't believe in teamwork.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invite, Masingita and other panelists. Thank you very much for the invite. And as you've already introduced me, I'm Masunga from the ACDP. And let me first start by acknowledging our Almighty God, eternally existent in three persons, for the Father, for the Son, for the Holy Spirit. And also to also acknowledge my leader who sent me here. He couldn't make it, the Reverend Kenneth Mission, and he asked me to step in for him. And to also thank Masingita for inviting us. And we take serious any invite that we get and we honor it. And let me also, maybe just to lay the foundation to say that I will quote scripture Philippians 2, verses 3 to 5, where it speaks about let us not do things out of selfish interest and remain humble in everything that we do. Now, and also Exodus 18, verse 21, where it speaks about electing leaders who are capable, who are honest, who hate illegal gain, or does not change because of money. I'm just laying the foundation to show you that we are not part of the government based on those two scriptures that I just quoted, to say whatever they do everything for their own selfish interest. It's not for the better of the people. So we're not part of GNU not because we hate unity. We know and understand that we had a fake unity in 94. It did not work. That's why today we can say that apartheid is thriving more than they thrived before because of that fake unity. So we don't believe in fake unity. We believe in genuine unity. So that's why we are not part of it. And we also are not part of it because we know the character. Because character is everything in life. So therefore the character of the politicians that we have are those that are there for themselves. They're selfish. That's true. So we chose to be on the opposite benches so that we hold them accountable. Because I don't want to jump the gun because there are some coalition arrangements that are happening that will support what I'm saying. Now, we are not part of the GNU, like I said, that there is selfish desires, and also looking at them, they are not honest leaders. You can see that this is not a government of national unity. It is ANC back in charge. If you look at the cabinet, out of the 32 members, 20 of them are from the ANC. Now, where is unity in there? Because they would easily outvote the 12 of those who became part of them. And we understand that they went there, the others, because they were negotiating for cabinet posts. Because you could see, leading to the conclusion of this GNU, there were ups and downs because of posts, not because they wanted to serve the people, not because they want to unite this nation, because they just wanted power. They just wanted to serve their own stomach, like the scripture saying, we must not serve out of selfish interest, and we must be humble in everything that we do. And we don't see humility in everything that we do because the leaders that are there, they did not show humility because they were saying to their partners, either you get this or not. They were not prepared. So anybody who's humble, anybody who's for unity, they will humble themselves and understand that they did not win elections, therefore they have to accommodate people. And also they don't have to hang on to positions to be able to rule. Because as we see it now, it's not a government operation. The ANC is still in charge, whether we like it or not. It is just a plaster put there to say GNU. The ANC is in charge, believe it or not. They are in charge. 20 cabinet ministers. Out of the 77, you can make your own stats and you will see how many there are there. And they were so strategic in taking those strategic ministries so that they are still in charge. And yeah, I don't want to jump the gun and speak about other things in front, but that is why we are not part of it as yet, because we said yet. But looking at it, politicians, if
you're one of politicians,
yes, I'm one of them, yes. Before the elections, if you were to invite them before the elections, this room would be full.
They didn't come to mine. They didn't come to mine. I invited
to yours?
No, they didn't come.
All right. I'm just saying that it is about the elections most of the time.
Yeah.
And they don't honor their word. And how do you work with people who you know that their character is that of liars? Their character is that of selfish desires, and so on. But we can speak more on it when we delve more into this topic. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. There are certain issues that you brought up. I'll come to that, especially when you say the ANC took the big chunk. And I'm thinking, but even within the results, they still have the bigger chunk than everybody. But we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. The deputy leader of BOSA is here as well. She's not, you are not part of the GNU. And this one is the question I was asking him from ACDP. We are black people. We cannot deny the demographic. As black people, we are more divided now than before. I was actually saying, sometimes I imagine Verwoerd, Jan Smart, whoever the colonizers having a conversation with Mandela, Sobukwe, Sisulu, and they're probably laughing at them to say, actually, apartheid is thriving now more than before. And here you are, after the results, you decide we don't want to be part of the GNU. Is it that you don't believe in unity, in diversity, in teamwork? Why is it that you are not part of it?
So, first of all, thank you for having us, and thank you for inviting us and having this very important conversation, Masingita. We appreciate it. We absolutely believe in unity. We absolutely believe in diversity. We absolutely believe in teamwork. But we also believe that there are different roles to be played within the team. And so there will be those who will play the role of governance within the team. And there have got to be those who play the role of accountability and oversight in the team. Looking at where we are now, we have a GNU of which 70% of Parliament is in the executive. Somebody has got to be responsible for oversight, for accountability, for being the voice of the people, for making sure that there is delivery that takes place. And that is what the role that we've decided as BOSA we're going to play. We have had a government, we heard the opening address of Parliament this week. And we heard the President say great things. We've heard the President say great things in his past 6 addresses. great things, things that anybody would want to hear in this country. But we have not seen those things implemented or fulfilled, and somebody has got to make sure that those promises, that those plans are implemented and fulfilled. And that's the role that we've decided we're going to take as BOSA, making sure that there's accountability, transparency, and oversight.
But can't you hold somebody that you are united? Actually, unity is that. The fact that we are together, we're working together, says, I trust you enough to be able to point out to you what you're not doing right.
But what makes us think we're not working together if we're playing an accountability and oversight role that's not in the executive? We're still working together. We're all in parliament. We're working together. We're just playing a different role. I do believe that, in fact, one thing I want to say is that we want the GNU to work. This country can't afford for it to not work. And so there is no inkling of an iota of any aspect of who we are and what we're saying, what we're doing that doesn't want the GNU to work. We have in fact even been in conversations with the ANC and with other parties because we want the ANC to work. I think that we should not undermine the role of accountability and transparency and make it to be less important than that of coming together to govern.
I hear you, and we'll come back to that. I will speak to Mr. Litisha at the moment because he wrote a book called Dodging the Civil War Bullet. The story of how Nelson Mandela avoided a civil war, not alone. Most of us didn't even know that those negotiations started in 1985. And only about 4 people knew. Not even he'll explain how at this time where we are at the moment, how do you think the way they did it before could have assisted in terms of the situation where we are as a country at the moment?
Okay, thank you, Masingita, for the opportunity. And I think it's a pretty good question. My name is Sundari Diha, and I'm here at the moment. When you look, my book is really about how South Africa avoided civil war. And I'm always inspired by a pastor. I'm always inspired by a pastor who says everything rises and falls one day. Everything, not some of the things, but everything rises. So when South Africa was facing civil war, there emerged a caliber of leadership. Nelson Mandela, you've been interested in P.W. Botha, Nelo Barnard, Thabo Mbeki, Professor Esther Reyes. But what they did, as she has indicated, between 1985 and 1990, to say, if we don't find each other, there will be civil war. And it will be a racial war, basically, between blacks and whites. It was not an easy one. And I'll give you an example just that I think is, you see, when I look at this Nelson Mandela, probably the greatest risk he did in his life was to start talking to the National Party alone without even asking for permission from Oliver Tambo, if you understand what I mean, not even from the party. And in his book, he says it that it was quite clear that no side will initiate this negotiation, because initiating a negotiation means you are weak, you are losing the battle. And he said, okay, let me try to send old men in prison. And he really did a remarkable thing by starting those talks, because had he not done so, the likelihood is that we would have gone into civil war. Neil Barnard was actually the one who was knowingly to doing the thing on behalf of the National Party as a head of intelligence. But here's the question now. When I look at the leaders of that time, and the leaders that we have now who have just negotiated the government of national unity. It's dramatic, you know. I always say that when you look at the ANC, you know, the evolution. ANC has been undergoing what I call negative evolution. In evolution, the species improves with time. When you look at the ANC, it wasn't with time. I mean, from Nelson Mandela to Jacob Zuma, what do you call it? Please understand what I mean. But it keeps on, the species keeps on getting on. But just for to complete, because I will come back. This issue that you've mentioned is actually true. Cyril Ramaphosa simply outwitted everyone else. No matter, I personally believe that Ramaphosa is a weak leader. He doesn't have a backbone and all that. But I tell you, he saved the ANC this time because no living South African is as gifted as Ramaphosa when you come to multilateral processes. You're not getting too many people to talk to each other. You know what I mean? And I'm here to say it. Most people don't realize it. Out of 13 ministries, then has 20. But you got 40%. It's not even mathematical. Arithmetically, it's wrong. You understand what I mean? And why did it happen? Because I think some people were desperate to go into this thing. I'll just take a break from here but say, I'm not inspired by the quality of the leadership that is taking us through this compared to the previous one. I think there's a lot of mediocrity that rises in this country that is allowed to go even at the apex of our institutions. And we'll just say, we've got 5 years, né? We'll just say how far it goes. Just before I provide, Madam Andashi decided to say, Helen Zille, you're not my boss. You know what I mean? But we don't know, it's going to be difficult. But I think at least, I think it's important. Most liberation movements, Masingita, never accept defeat when they lose. You must give the ANC credit for that, whether you like it or not. Most liberation movements don't. If you don't know, in 2008, actually, ZANU-PF lost the elections in 4 weeks. We waited. The army refused when Mugabe wanted to hand over power to Tsvangirai. So, with all these weaknesses, we must also realize that we are like people that the liberation movement that has been in power for 8 years was prepared to lose power. Although it has not really lost power, it's still in power, it's on for power. Thank you.
But you know what? Here's the thing. I like that we are bringing the positive out of all this because as South African, and I'd like personally to speak to that as a psychometrist, how we are very anxious. We have lost hope. And there's so many things rising that because the morale is low. And we just need that little bit of positiveness. Hence we started this dialogue because we were saying we can hear there needs to be a national dialogue. But we cannot have a dialogue about having a dialogue. You know, let me say it. I wish the ANC were here to answer because we're not gossiping. We're coming together to find solutions to build our nation. The ANC leader said to me, Dear Smith, I'm not available prior to, due to prior commitments. Good luck with your event. And I'm thinking, I don't need luck. South Africa doesn't need luck. We need to talk. And the first thing from Bosa, 2 minutes after my message, the leader is not available. We are sending a representative. That leadership, delegation, and it speaks to what you are talking about. That can't the governing party delegate somebody? I mean, they've got how many members?
600,000.
and they can't because their leaders are in Cape Town. Nobody can come. Had it been the big media houses, they would have sent someone. It's Masingita. Well, it doesn't matter. And before some of you came in, I was speaking about the fact that a black South African woman made this week. Parliament didn't rise because she has a disability. The Kotato won the Wimbledon. A black. We need positive stories of victory. Parliament didn't rise to them. What does it say about equality 30 years into democracy? Dr. O'Ryan, you talk about leadership. Where we are with the GNU, do you think they've avoided issues that they don't agree on just to plaster the cracks so that we just move on?
Just to start as well, good afternoon, everyone. I always start by, sort of what is leadership? That's where we should start.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we think leadership is a position. Leadership is a quality in a person, and a person can lead from anywhere. You don't have to be in a position. So what I'm saying is that mostly leadership is about the people. It's not about you. You are serving the people. So if we all have a focus on who we are leading and where we should be going, what should be changing, then it's very difficult not to agree because we know where we stand as a nation, where we need to go. So but the problem is now when we don't focus on the vision that we have for our country. And maybe just to add as well, I mean, in people like Nelson Mandela, he was a beacon of hope. I know there are people who would disagree on certain issues, but he was a leader, charismatic leader, whom our hopes were heightened when he was a leader. So that's what we are talking about when we talk about leadership, where people feel positive about their future, feel positive that things are going to change. And compared to now, when things are hopeless, meaning we do not even believe we have leaders who care about us. So there is no hope. That's why there's a problem of mental health and stress, anxiety, and depression. Because people have no future about the future. They have no hope about the future.
You spoke of common vision, and that's very key. I said, as we were lining up issues of discussion, during apartheid, as black people, and black, I mean all those races as well, that were not part of, the white race in government, voting, having equal rights. We had a common vision because we had a common enemy, which was the apartheid government. Right now, can we have a common vision? And if we were to have a common vision, what is that vision?
Okay, that would be maybe according to me, but I think it's obvious for everyone that people are suffering unnecessarily. There's high unemployment, there's food insecurity. I was actually listening this morning to someone who was saying they are saving, the food that's supposed to be thrown away, they take them and feed other people. So in South Africa, there shouldn't be any food insecurity if things are done well, managed and led. If we have leaders and managers, people should not go hungry at night. There wouldn't be any child who go hungry.
So you believe that right now as a country, the one thing that each and everyone should fight for is economic stability?
I would say that.
Which
I would
is
say
good.
that.
I mean, if you are hungry, you can think we've got a high rate of crime because people, and I'm not excusing crime, but the reality is people are frustrated. People are hungry. Before I come to Basan, Prophet you wrote a book called Government on Life Support, and you were a civil servant anyway. With the GNU and some other parties saying we're not going to be part of that, do you think government is going to get out of life support?
Thank you, Masingita. As you indicated, the name of my book, the title of my book is A Government on Life Support, and the subtitle is Win It Off, meaning that we need to do something to move government from life support. So, in my book, I actually said that irrespective of which party, because my book was published before the elections, it says that irrespective of which party is going to go into power, there are certain things that if they are not done, for example, the very fact that as long as we don't have an effective and efficient public service or public administration, we're still going to remain where we are. So the GNU, and I'm saying the same thing with the GNU, to say irrespective of whether we have these parties together, of course it will help somehow, but as long as the public administration is not intact, then we'll fail. You see, what is it that people are crying about? Is it not service delivery? You just said so, ma'am, that people need sufficient food. We need good health system. People are crying, about crime. And who delivers those services to the people? Is it the politicians? The politicians just outline. They outline what is it that the country, like the president was doing last week, that these are the priorities for government for the next 5 years. But who's going to implement that? Everyone is talking about implementation as if the politicians are the ones who are going to implement. The politicians are supposed to oversee, that there is implementation, but the actual implementation is undertaken by the public servants. And my book outlines why we have.
Now that I need the DA, it's okay not to speak about black empowerment. Look, we've got less women in parliament. In 30 years, it's like we are regressing. How are we dealing with that? And what do we do? Let me, to you, and Basan, you speak. You can
No, I don't want to speak. I just want to, just a quick one.
Okay.
This thing on public service. 3 weeks ago, I attended Gibbs Moilovo, a session on how to professionalize the public service. One of the speakers happened to be Schreiber, the current Minister of Home Affairs, and Nakwet Bofigeni, and journalism. The hypocrisy. When we were there, Schreiber was saying, yeah, we must make sure that we depoliticize the public service. 2 weeks later, he's now a minister. And then he says, no, Mr. President, we want to make sure that the DGs, the ministers at GA, must actually be appointed by them. I've never seen that.
Thank you. I'll come back to, I hope now it's making sense the position I've stated that we've decided on as BOSA. But before I get to that, you mentioned something in passing, and I mean, I can't not speak to it. You spoke about women and there being less women in parliament. There's less women in politics. And the reality is that it always looks like there are women in politics when you look at it. I'm deputy leader of a party in this country, and I can say maybe I'm one of one or two. There are deputy leaders or leaders of parties. In fact, women that are leaders of parties because they founded the parties. And one could argue that I'm deputy leader of a political party because I'm co-founder of a political party. But the reality is that if people have to rise up the ranks to go and make it to leadership at that level, it just doesn't happen. And we have to deal with those realities, and we have to deal with those issues. And like you say, those things start with us being the change. And so people like myself have a responsibility to make sure that we're creating an enabling environment for us to have more women who are leading in politics. And there are reasons for that, because first of all, women are the most affected by economic instability. Women are the most affected when there's no safety in the country. Women are the most affected when the education system does not deliver for the children. And so you have to make sure that you have that representation. But I'm just saying that passing. To your question on what are we going to do? I mean, there couldn't be a better answer to why we've chosen to take the position we have as BOSA, to say that we are going to do the work, that teamwork, by holding government accountable and making sure that happens. We're doing that. I sit, for instance, in 4 portfolio committees. I sit in 4 portfolio committees plus 3 administrative committees in Parliament. The administrative committees in Parliament are particularly important in this administration because we have to create more rules to strengthen opposition. And we have to redefine what opposition is. So the DA can no longer be called opposition because now they are within the executive. The leader of the DA cannot be the leader of the opposition, and that is the work we've been doing in Parliament over the past few weeks in those rules committees, to say you have got to strengthen and give more power through the mechanisms that exist to now those that sit outside of the GNU. Because this week we were debating, I was debating, for instance, on police, on the police budget, and was the one who then raises the issue of you can't have more than 2 billion rand allocated for VIP protection for ministers and deputy ministers, when in this country 83 people get killed every day and there is not enough protection for the citizens of this country. The DA is suddenly mum on those issues. The DA is suddenly mum on the bloated cabinet. The DA has become mum on many things, and so you've got to strengthen that accountability. There's a lot of work, and what we've been doing with Musimane is that as we do the work that we're doing in Parliament, we're doing videos to educate the public on what actually happens in Parliament. Because people don't actually know the work that happens in Parliament and what parties should be doing to hold the executive accountable. There is much opportunity and responsibility to do that in those portfolio committees, to make sure that budgets are being spent appropriately, to make sure that those plans, those APPs that are tabled are actually happening and being implemented, to make sure that the needs of constituencies are actually being taken into consideration. We have a situation here, particularly in Gauteng, where NPOs have gone without payments. But when you speak about the issue of the Department of Social Development, even the processes that take place in order for NPOs to have support need to be reviewed because they don't speak to the realities and to the needs that are on the ground. That's an example. That's something that has to happen in the portfolio committee. So we're going to be doing that work. It is the engine room of Parliament. It is what makes sure that there's delivery. And I don't think enough work has been done in the past, and enough attention has been paid to that work that is behind the scenes, and that is not as glamorous. People think that this that we were seeing over the past day or two in Parliament taking place, of people having petty debates and personalized debates or pointing at each other in Parliament, is the work of Parliament. That is not the work of Parliament. The work of Parliament is to be the voice of the people and to make sure that there's delivery and that work happens in that executive.
True, and I hear we are a new channel. We don't even have capital. we will be broadcasting on Starsted, YouTube. So we are available to meet the public with those videos, because even before the elections, people say to me they got voter education more from me than any other. And you know why? Because I wouldn't have town halls. I would tell you that I sent an email to Slavisa and he responded in 2 minutes. That's what leadership. So people got to know their leader, not the gimmicks. I would tell you that I called the EFF, I called the DA, they were arrogant. And somebody even said, you know what? The election result vindicated you, because almost everything you said, the result pointed you out. And I'm saying, I'm not rejoicing, because it's taking the black child back. And I'm for the advancement, for equality of the black child. And where we are, it's not an ideal situation. It's not what people died for. It's not what women march for. As you were speaking, next month we are talking about marijuana. Women are suffering, widows are divided. How are we coming together as women, the 1956 women, to heal those widows? And to be together and say, let's put aside our differences, like those women. Talking about healing, Vasani, as a mental health specialist, where are we as a country, and where do we begin to build hope?
Thank you so much, Masingita. I think you have mentioned that we are trying to plaster the wound, and I think that's where we are going. We are living in an anxiety-provoking South Africa, where people are anxious, people are depressed. And how do we see that? We see it in our community, because when you are depressed, you are unlikely to love yourself, to take care of yourself. We see people are littering, people are no longer worried about their environment, which is critical. We see people just wandering around with no purpose, and that is dangerous to South Africa if we're going to have young people who doesn't have a purpose. The high risk of the substance use disorder in South Africa is overwhelming, and those are our young people. So if we are not ready to talk about our issues, and I think that the issue here is that people are not comfortable or are not very sure about the quality of the leaders that we have, and especially when it comes to integrity. I think the speakers from the parties have highlighted it differently, that the issue here is integrity, because if you stand for something, it cannot change when you try to work with another party. You should stand to what you believe that is true, because you are the voice of the voiceless. And we see that the most vulnerable people are affected, because in South Africa, it's not everyone who can afford a psychologist. So what do? They use the coping mechanisms that are wrong, but that are available to them, which is substance use disorder, alcohol, crime, and other things that we are seeing. So we really need to talk, and also thinking that we're talking about human beings. They have feelings, and we are social people, we are spiritual people. So if some of the worlds are off, which is our social and our spiritual, we are not going anywhere.
You know, I had a conversation with Bradley yesterday about issues of equality. We like saying 30 years into democracy, we tell, especially young people, oh, you have a choice. It's about a choice. Your life is about a choice. And I said to him, being a black South African, that's very unrealistic. That's a position of privilege. And I felt that it's happening in politics. How are we starting to be real about the issues of equality? And what are you doing as political parties to bring the issues of equality to say, you cannot say to a black child that go to school, and when they've gone to school, there are no opportunities. When a white child, after school, even if they don't find work, at least their dad owns a company. I felt that people who are in leadership, because now they've got options, they believe that we all have options. One leader said to me, I was looking for money to get into retail with my product. And they said, go to the bank. I'm blacklisted. It's okay for them, they've got a salary from Parliament. And they don't wear my brand, they wear international brand. How do I go to the bank? How do we begin to address the issues of equality? Because we cannot start equality from an equal departure. We cannot depart from an equal footing if we're going to empower a black child. Yes, you can. You can speak after him to the event.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much, Masingita. And look, you touched on, a lot of speakers touched on the issue of oversight, that we can play positively as those political parties who are not part of the GNP. Don't underestimate oversight, it's very important. And obviously coming to solutions on equality and everything. So everything is around leadership. We cannot run away from that. We need servant leaders, people who serve. We need compassionate leaders. We need leaders that are exemplary. So you are talking about black and white, which I personally do not subscribe to black and white because it's a creation of evil. Now, I'm saying that it's a debate for another day to say this was intentionally done to say you fight black and white until you die, because who created black and white? God did not create black and white, He created human beings. Now we are fighting the wrong battle here. So we are looking at a color that is created by human being to cause the confusion that we are under now. We are fighting things that are not there. Now, that's why this was done intentionally so that generation after generation we fight. Color, black, white. And we have made white our standard to say we must look like them. No. We must always remember that God created us equal. Once we start thinking like that, we're not gonna fight to look like others, but we will always want to be what we want. So I can also say the apartheid that we thought we fought, we did not win it because it was structural. It was structured in a way that even if you get the so-called freedom, you're still gonna fight. Black and white, women and children, etc., etc. So it's a lot of things that we are not looking at to say. That's why I said I'm building a foundation on those two scriptures, Exodus 18:21 and Philippians 2, to say if things are done from a selfish interest and are not done out of humility, we are not going anywhere. Because politicians, we have made government a hiring agency. So we are there for the work, we are not there to serve the people. So until we serve the people, this equality thing will come. Because a servant leader stands for the weak. A servant leader empowers the weak. A servant leader will always want to empower. Not looking at the color, no. The color that is man-made. That's why I say I don't subscribe to it, because I know it's a creation of evil, so that we fight forever and forever and forever. So we must, as we approach things as human beings. As human beings. Once we approach it that way, then we will be able to say. So this GNU thing, which talks to servant leadership, the DA was against the bloated cabinet. Now they are not saying anything. So hence I was saying to you, issues of trust are there. You cannot be part of people that you cannot trust. You cannot work with people that you cannot trust, because before the elections, the DA said we are not going to work with the ANC. ANC is enemy number one. Fast forward, 2 days later they're working with the ANC. How do you work with people who just change their mind because of money? That's why I quoted Exodus 18:21 to say, people must not change because of the money. Because it's all about money now. They just want the money and power. So, as we move forward, we need to change the mindset. I like what my sister said about leadership not being the position. It is the character of a person. The presidency will remain there. But the person who occupies there is very important. Must be a servant leader, must be a compassionate leader, must be an exemplary leader. I thank you.
Okay, I'll ask, but I still the issue of black and white. Power was white. We cannot deny, and if we want to speak equality, we need to confront that. But a debate for Anna, and I start.
Yes, greetings, my sister, greetings, myself. Okay, my name is Leto Tua, I'm a peace builder, peace ambassador. With the GNU, as far as my assessment, I don't feel any peace in it as a peace builder. I don't feel there is peace.
So whenever you speak, you can just hold it like this, and it will be good.
Okay, for me, I don't feel like any peace from the GNU. Why I'm saying this, because I was expecting that all the parties will come together, especially the African parties. I was expecting them that they were going to leave all their differences, like during the studies where we had to join any party because we're fighting the one enemy. So, but for now, as we fail to come together, I said to one man that was telling me, it was like, I don't know how to play chess, but I always say that when the game is finished, they say it's a checkmate. So for me, it was like a checkmate. I thought, it's a checkmate now, we're done, we've won the game. Because it's a matter of now all of us now coming together, and the TA and their friends, they were going to be just eliminated and be gone. You see, but then we didn't do that. Why? Because we saw that if we come together, we've got so much differences, we're going to start fighting each other now. You see, we're going to be fighting each other, and then the enemy will be still standing aside and looking. And what will happen? Our people will go for the enemy. So now what we did, we thought, okay, we'll have to just split. So now the enemy is joined with us, and now what happens? Them, they are feeling okay. Why? Because we're fighting for our natural resources. We're fighting for our resources to work for us, to benefit our African people. But today it won't even benefit the African people because they're not even balancing it. They're not even talking of how do we pay the people that suffered before that way caused by the white people. But so because of the situation that is in it, I think we the Africans, we just blow ourselves. This of saying that ANC, they made a mistake, this one, Nkoto made a mistake, all of them, they made a mistake. They should have made the checkmate and be done. But
what do you mean checkmate?
Okay, I mean, the game was finished because we were fighting the oppressors.
Yes.
So now it's a matter of how do we, if we come together, imagine if Nkoto, they never minded about all these differences and all these IFP and all of these parties, they came together and eliminate the white people. What was going to happen? It means we're going to put the rules that are going to benefit our people. But we failed to do that because we saw that if we come together, we've got lots of troubles because we are now capitalists. We are far from the system of saving our people, but now it's each man for himself. That's why even the mines and all these natural resources, they're not working for our people. They are working for them, the white people. That's what's going to be happening. Why? Because it's them now that will be using the resources, and it's them that will be opening the businesses. And we Africans now, because our minds is to work, we say we want to work. So we're going to be working, and we're going to be slaves. So it hates, I didn't feel any peace because I see that is a system that is taking us back to slavery because we won't be owning anything. We are just workers. And we are so excited that we'll be working, this job now, working under this white man and this white man. Don't involve the last man in this game. I'm out.
You won't vote.
I did vote because I wanted to make, you always want your voice to be heard.
Yes.
But, it's like you're just doing it now because you have to do it, but it doesn't work for us.
We've got less than 20 minutes left, and before we get to the point where we discuss what can we do to be the change that we want to see, like Nelson Mandela and other stalwarts did. I spoke about earlier Bondade Agri-Cluster. I'm a creation of them. Bondade Don Matera. They contributed when I struggled with government. They came in as media people and they intervened. So I do believe that even now we can't be despondent and say there's nothing we can do. But there's an elephant in the country. I call it elephant in the country. Whether we like it or not, Gauteng controls what happens in the country. I mean, this is where our capital is. This is where operations are. Yes, Cape Town is legislature, but operations, as you said, the public service is in Pretoria. The economic powerhouse of not only South Africa, but Africa. It's in Gauteng. Yet Gauteng doesn't have a stable government. Anything can happen at any time. And I said earlier, we hope for the best. We don't bring these issues because we want to. But as leaders, we have to be visionaries. We need to look at signposts where we see that there's a possibility of a problem. We think, how do we mitigate that? Yes, we hope for the best in Gauteng. But how do we prepare for the worst? Where do we begin?
I think, yeah. Yes, thank you very much. I think we just need to drill down to majority as leaders from various political parties, be mature enough to be able to work as one for the benefit of our communities. I think that's number one, because we've been saying this since 2016 to say that the people have spoken to say that they don't trust us as politicians, all of us. So therefore they expect us to work together. 2016 happened, and they were in denial. The others, both the ANC, the DA. 2021 happened again. They were still in denial because they want power. Fast forward, 2024 happened again to say, you guys, we don't trust you. The voters are speaking to say, we don't trust you to give you power. So you need to work together. So as the ACDP, we have been speaking about this in all the municipalities where we're involved, Ekurhuleni, Joburg, Tshwane, to say, let us work together. But I cannot tell you of the difficulties that we encounter and in those closed doors negotiations with other parties to say, guys, let us work together. Let us work together for the better. So now, we see what we see today in Johannesburg, because when we said as the ACDP, politics aside, let's work together. Your DA and the others say, no, we want a revote. Why? Because they're saying the voters are wrong. But the voters proved them 3 years later to say, we still are standing with what we said. So that's why to go into, to go into a GNU with people we cannot trust, it's very difficult, because today they say one thing, tomorrow they say it. So we just need to be mature, all of us, in Gauteng especially. We just need maturity, because I can tell you now, in the Joburg municipality, there is a loan that has been there for the past 3 months or so. It's not approved. Why? Because your EFF is negotiating, because their MMC was dismissed in Ekurhuleni. So they're playing games. It's all about self-interest. So until we move away, that's why I said the scriptures are laying the foundation, Philippians 2:3-5, to say, do everything out of, don't do anything out of self-interest. Because once we do things out of self-interest, we are not going anywhere. And we are not also humble enough to say we have lost, to say power does not belong to us anymore, let's do it for the people. Until we do that, that's why I'm saying it's leadership. It's all around leadership. So, Joburg, we are suffering because we don't have leaders, but we've got people with stomach politics. They want just to feed their stomachs. They just want to negotiate for MMC's positions. They are the same as the DA. That's what they're doing. So that's why we are where we are, and we just need mature leaders. Thank you very much.
What do we do? Because I feel, as black people, we've got that thing now. They were the it's like after school, we're waiting for the voting. Yeah. And when the voting comes, we're not going to approve. But at the end of the day, who suffers? Because you're still going to get your salary. But the grassroots, like they see, when elephants fight, the grass suffers. What hence I'm bringing this issue of how do we prepare for the work? We know after school.
I think one of the things that we maintained is that we have to put the 61 million South Africans first.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about the 61 million South Africans. If we were to do what the 61 million South Africans if we were to do as per the 61 million South Africans, what they have said to us, the ANC would govern as a minority party. but there is this obsession with absolute power. And so even this GNU is an attempt to have this absolute power at all costs. It's getting people over who would have been in opposition to now no longer be in opposition. To now no longer be in opposition. It's about getting these people to now be in a place where they say to you, no, we now no longer call you on the issues that we are calling. This is government. I'll tell you, the whip in Parliament of the ACDP has been so helpful. And just so, we've got such a good relationship and with other parties as well. And that's how we need to work together. So this is a good symbolic gesture of how we're working in Parliament. But it has to be about the 61 million.
Yes.
And if it was about the 61 million, the ANC would have carried on with life as a minority government. They would have leaned on our votes on an issue-by-issue basis, which is what we've committed to. We've said we will support on an issue-by-issue basis because we will support on the basis of, is this good for the 61 million? Mm-hmm. And so even in Gauteng, it should be a case of what we should prepare ourselves for is if the thing collapses, they must govern as a minority. And they must depend on everybody else's voices on an issue-by-issue basis, truly representing the 61 million. That's what should be happening. So we've said to the ANC and we've said to the PNU, we will support on an issue-by-issue basis. We cannot support things that are not in favor of the 61 million. We will only support what's in favor of the 61 million. And that's what we should be doing. And that's how I think as leaders, we should be setting ourselves up for whatever it is that happens in Gauteng. And even nationally, because we also don't know what will happen nationally. We should be thinking about how do we set up a government that serves the 61 million. And I'm going to excuse myself. I have to rush back to the Cape Town. I'm catching a flight, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyway, we've got 9 minutes left, so we're almost done. Yeah. Thank you. We're still going to call you because we want to do a show where leaders in Parliament account on a week by week that what service as a party have you given to South African for that week. Actually, we're starting a poll, a weekly poll that says who has been the most honorable. Because you can't keep calling each other honorable and none of you are not doing anything honorable on that. So yes, we will be there. Thank you very much for coming. Now, yes. Oh yes.
Hello. My name is Kanya Ramatzi and I'm the daughter of Dr. Ramatzi.
Oh, young person!
I kind of wanted to hop on the idea of absolute power. I feel like the leaders of today are sort of holding on to power, and an issue with that as well is that no one is actually kind of guiding the youth. So as a youth, that's one of like the things that I look at. No one is teaching us to be the next generation of leaders. Everyone is like holding on to power and they're kind of neglecting that you need to start sort of guiding and mentoring the next generation of leaders. And because of it, the youth is very hopeless. I also see with my peers, there isn't much interest sometimes in these kind of like conversations because we are hopeless. We haven't seen much change. For example, the idea of like load shedding as an idea, as a concept, was introduced when I was 7. And it is still happening. There's no solutions. So yeah, I definitely do think we need to also focus on looking at the youth and bringing them into these conversations. And another issue I kind of have with the leaders of today is that they don't represent the average South African. They live in their ivory towers and they're not affected by the issues that everyone else is affected by. Oh, there's load shedding, they have inverters. Education, their kids are in private schools. So like, how, it's sort of, there's a disconnect between the leaders and what's actually happening on the ground that like, and there's no communication. I don't know how to talk to one of the big leaders. How do I communicate with someone that can actually bring some sort of change? It's pretty.
So I'm giving you a show. You will be hosting a show where young people will be asking leaders week in, week out. You'll work with Mutabi and Peace. Because we want to have that show where we're asking our leader who has been honorable this week. And there will be a poll. So you've got a show. These are the young ones. Sometimes I get confused. Because even in our segment, we had a segment where we were saying the future we want. What is it that young people want?
I do think, just one more quick comment, is that with the leaders, and I think it was also mentioned about how there's a switch up. They say something when they are advocating their cause, but then when they get into leadership positions, there's a switch up. So to me, it kind of reminds me of the statement of sort of they don't want equality, they want privilege. Because if you actually wanted equality, you would actually solve certain issues, but no, you actually just want that privileged position.
Can I ask you quickly? Hey, my boss here is already quickly as we close. The young party is the EFF. What is your take on the EFF as a young person? I love that it's a party. I've got my issues with the EFF, but I like the fact that a young boy was able to rise above circumstances. Call Julius whatever, but Julius always rises. And that for me is, we need role models for young black men. What's your take on your EFF? Be honest.
Yes. So I think years ago, saying that, seeing the sort of the youth align more with the EFF, I would be shocked to find myself in that position as well, but that is where I am. And that's also where a lot of my peers, because we have conversations sometimes about these things, we do lean more towards the EFF, and you see it even with the sort of the voting results. A lot of in the university spaces, we lean more towards that. I think the main thing that they have is action. Whenever there's an issue, everyone is on Twitter calling the EFF. Please come help us protest, please come. They're on the ground. They actually do the work. When people were voting and they had to stay in lines until 9 p.m., EFF was there on the grounds handing out Red Bulls and stuff for people to eat. They're actually doing something. So that's where I think the youth sort of gravitates towards that, because they're seeing it. There's also just the idea that they're seeing leaders with education. They see them going around with their graduation gowns. It gives us hope as well to see leaders that actually show an appreciation to education. Some other parties don't necessarily do that, or there's scandals where their degrees were bought. So it's when you are seeing leaders that have qualifications, they are pushing for education, they are saying, hey, I'm not just saying go learn, I'm actually learning myself. We like that. I'm not just saying, hey, go and do this. They themselves as leaders are on the ground doing that. So I think that's one of the main reasons why the youth is leading towards the EFF, even though obviously it has its issues, but
one of which are very arrogant to me. Anyway, we're out of time. What we're trying to practice is, even though nobody is holding us accountable, we want to hold ourselves accountable. We are out of time in terms of the show, but we can still discuss and talk. So I just have to say goodbye to those who are joining us online. Thank you very much for joining us. As I mentioned, our next national interest dialogue is about how do we come together as women, like the women of 1956, to heal each other, including the widows of Marikan. So we hope you join us for that conversation. Thank you. We can continue if we want.
Thank you.